system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And we are live on Who Wrote That Up for You. Today is Friday, October 28th, 2022. I'm Sonja Ebron, co founder at Courtroom 5.
And I'm Debra Sloan, the other co founder at Courtroom 5.
We have a wonderful show for you today. In a few moments, we will speak with Kelly Dunn. Kelly is the author of Baby Daddy from Hell. It is a discussion of her child custody battle in the courts, and we'll hear what she's learned from that experience. But before we get there, Deborah, what is on your mind today?
I want to touch on this study out of Wake Forest Law Review by Roger Michalski and Andrew Hammond. It's entitled Mapping the Civil Justice Gap in Federal Court. And the point is that unrepresented litigants, the point they make is that unrepresented litigants make up a large and important chunk of civil litigation in the federal courts. Um, but there were two major findings of that. The first was that most pro se litigants don't live either in the wealthiest or the poorest neighborhoods. Instead, they're pretty much middle class with a few outliers, and they basically match the general population of outliers. But secondly, there are two other notable exceptions. Is that people who live in rural areas tend not to go pro se as much as they thought. They thought that there are going to be a lot of pro se people out of rural areas and a lot of pro se litigants that are homogeneously white, and that's just not the case. It's across the board. And so I thought it was an interesting study that we should focus a little bit more of our attention on.
You're absolutely right. It is fascinating. I have not heard of another study like that, and it's overdue for the courts to understand the sorts of people that are appearing for in front of them or before them without an attorney. So really glad. I know that we can talk a lot about some of the customers that we serve, the people we serve at Courtroom Five, and that's certainly what we've seen. The results you've discussed there. Yeah, maybe we'll get into that a little bit further, but there's a lot to show there that I think is unknown, at least amongst those in the legal profession. So really great to see that sort of study there. All right, so it, who wrote that up for you is sponsored by Courtroom Five. At Courtroom Five, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them, and we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. So if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. All right. Does look like our guest is having some technical challenges today. So I think we're going to have to reschedule her. Deborah, I want to then take the opportunity to dive a little deeper on that study that you mentioned. You know, as I was responding a moment ago, we see a broad range of people, certainly at Courtroom Five, and most of our customers, and I think this is probably true of the country as a whole, are handling their litigation in state courts. We have only a sprinkling, I think, of people handling or working in the federal courts. And as you've mentioned a number of times, the types of cases that you handle in federal courts and in state courts are somewhat different. So we know, like in federal courts, you're more likely to see people handling, I think, maybe bankruptcy. or civil rights claims. So you might have a wrongful termination dispute or something like that. Police brutality we have seen once or twice as well. And in state courts, I mean, it just runs the gamut, right? From family issues, your probate, your debt collection, contract cases, home foreclosures and whatnot, just across the board, a very wide variety of claims handled in the state courts. But while this study that you mentioned is focused on the federal courts, I don't think there'd be a difference if they were to do that same sort of study in the state courts, right? This is middle America that we are talking about, being unrepresented, middle income America specifically. These are not necessarily low income people who find themselves unable to find legal representation when they have to go to court. So it's very interesting to me that even though they focused on federal cases, they found this, I think, somewhat counterintuitive conclusion that these people who are in court representing themselves are are not low income people necessarily.
Well, that they're yeah, that they're ordinary people, but they mentioned that they're not from the wealthiest neighborhoods and from the poorest neighborhoods. But that's a huge range. If you're not, I mean, what if you're not from, let's say somebody's very, 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 very wealthy, they're not going to represent themselves because hell, I mean, why bother? Get a lawyer, and then people from the poorest, they're not, their focus is not really on I mean, the poorest neighborhoods, their focus is not really on going to court and showing what you can do, and being able to defeat a lawyer. And also they may have, if they're from the poorest neighborhood, they would have pro bono, they may have legal aid with the pro bono. However, that's a huge range in between. So I'm not thinking that they're saying, they're calling it that they're ordinary, but that's not ordinary. That's a huge range of people.
It is.
And so there could be the state cases could be a lot different.
I understand your point, but I don't know. I guess statistically, and you're the statistics expert here, so I'm not going to challenge you on this. But statistically, my sense would be that there's a wider variety of claims that self-represented litigants, at least, are handling in the federal courts, and therefore you would expect more diversity in the types of people having to deal with that entire
Mm.
body, that collection of people there. If I've got my old statistics recollected there, so like I said, you've got the training on that. But it strikes me that based on what we have seen, at least, right? We're still early in our experience at Courtroom Five, but based on the sorts of people that we've seen, and I've personally spoken to a number of them, we do find folks at a wide variety of educational levels, a wide variety of income levels, although certainly we don't see any millionaires. At least I haven't run into any handling their own litigation. But also, there are not as many low income people, that is, people who would qualify for legal aid. At least using our services, right? I know that they are representing themselves in court. Legal aid, unfortunately, isn't able to serve everyone who is eligible for their services, and so people do find themselves having to represent themselves even when they are qualified. But nonetheless,
Right,
we
right.
see a wide range of income levels, right?
Mm.
At least in the 99%, right, of income levels there. And so, like I said, I think I would bet you, I would put up some money here that if this study had been done in the state courts, in
Mm,
any one of the state courts, as a matter of fact, that the results would be quite similar, right?
mm. Just the different claim types matters, and like I said, that there's a huge space between the wealthiest and the poorest.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that the claim types would matter in state court. Okay,
Yeah.
there's a different person dealing with a debt collection case than someone who might be dealing with probate. You know,
You're right.
so I don't think that we could. And federal court, of course, has a lot fewer people than state court. So I think it is. I think the numbers might be different. I think they may be different.
I mean, and there are a lot of dimensions here as well. So there is the income range. There's also the rural versus urban split, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
There's certainly age variations. Now, I don't know about this study. I don't know that you mentioned age variations, but we see them certainly.
Yeah.
Folks, young people handling credit card debt that maybe they shouldn't have
Yep.
incurred, versus people, more established people, homeowners who might be caught up in a foreclosure, that sort of thing, in state courts. But so I bet you there is some age variation. There's
Hmm.
certainly educational, level
Yep.
variations as well. We've seen everybody from people with high school diplomas, maybe even not, through PhDs, right?
Hmm.
And so, this is just a broad problem. And I think what's interesting to me, beside the variations that they highlighted and that we might expect to see in state courts, um, there's also a misperception, particularly in the legal community, right? That people who are representing themselves are either choosing to, okay, that they could
Mm.
have a lawyer if they wanted one, but they are choosing
Mm.
to
Yeah.
handle it
Yeah.
themselves, um, and that there's a particular type of person who takes that on. Either they're low wealth and can't afford a lawyer, or low wealth and financially qualified for legal aid, rather, or they're just some old anti-government, whatever, who want to handle it themselves rather than get capable legal representation. And I just think that those, whenever I hear folks talk like that in the legal profession, and I've seen it most from lawyers who would want to serve those people, right?
Hmm.
Just refusing to believe that there are so many people unable to afford their service. Just
Well,
simply,
oh,
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, and it's funny. I think case type or claim type is really extremely important. But one thing, it's funny with the personal injury case, a person who doesn't know anything about the law and who may not have a whole bunch of money was like, okay, this lawyer is free. Oh wow, contingency. They learn on the back end that
Yeah,
they're paying for everybody's secretary and paralegal and all that
yeah,
stuff. But I could see they may go for, okay, I'll let the lawyer represent me,
yeah,
and then on the opposite, somebody who may have a little bit more money who might say, I could get more money if I don't have this lawyer represent me and I try to do it myself. So it really does depend a lot on the type of claim it is, the type of case it is, and even the type of litigant you are. A defendant, I mean, they're dragged into court. A lot of them feel like they have to be there.
yeah,
A plaintiff has a choice. Okay,
right,
I have 4 years for the statute of limitations.
yeah.
So I think there are a lot of different factors that go into who's in court per se.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. So, we should maybe commission a study, certainly ask the academics to consider, right,
Exactly.
broadening the domain of that study and perhaps repeating it in one of the state courts or a region of the states. Would love to see some conclusion to this discussion. But we do need, I think, just within the legal industry as a whole, a better understanding of who it is that is taking on the work of representing themselves in court, because regardless of who they are, the courts are designed for lawyers, for represented people, right?
Hmm.
And that's just not the reality. The primary user of our nation's courts, whether it's state or federal,
Exactly.
is an unrepresented, a self-represented party. And the courts, I think, need to do a better job of addressing that fact. The distance from the distance between a represented party and an unrepresented party is far greater than
Mm,
any of the differences between unrepresented parties that we've been talking about
exactly.
here. And so the courts need to do a better job of just addressing whoever it is
Mhm.
that they're dealing with. Yeah, in the
Exactly. And we know it's frustrating. We know, that pro se litigants present a lot of challenges.
yeah.
But hey, that's who's in court.
That's who's in
That's
court, and we have
Yeah,
to have courts that deal with real people. That's exactly right. So
exactly.
it's one of those situations where the courts have hoisted themselves on their own petard by making things as complex as they are, right? Out of
Exactly.
the reach of the average constituent, the average user of the courts, and so it is up to the courts to fix this problem. Anyway, enough of that rambling. Deborah, who won yesterday's challenge, and what do you have teed up for us tomorrow or Monday?
O- Okay, yesterday's challenge, a successful blank ends the case before trial by proving there are no relevant facts in dispute and that the movement should prevail as a matter of law. The choices were counterclaim, motion to dispute the facts, motion for summary judgment, and motion to dismiss. And the answer is a motion for summary judgment. And the winner is Gabriel S. And that R is there because he is a return winner. Congratulations.
Congratulations again to Gabriel there.
And today's quiz, what is a sham pleading? What is a sham pleading? If you want to participate in today's quiz, send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com.
Fantastic. I am interested to see the answers to that one. Yeah, I have seen, I believe, a few of those in my time. But
Oh, that's what you called them
that's what I
anyway.
call them. That's for sure. That's what I call them. That'll be interesting to see the discussion there. Fantastic, fantastic. Well, thank you all for tuning in and listening to Deborah and I ramble about the demographics of self-represented litigants. That's all we have for you today. As usual, Deborah and I will take the weekend off. Look forward to seeing you all on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks again.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.